York Congressman Hakeem Jeffries, representing the boroughs of Brooklyn and Queens. He's on a congressional task force looking at over-criminalization in America. And Barbara Unwin, president of the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights. Thank you both for joining me.
Thank you, Ref.
Thank you.
Congressman, let me go to you first. What's your reaction to the news that New York officials will begin appealing this stop and frisk ruling tomorrow?
Well, this stubborn resistance to the fact that the stop and frisk program is unnecessary, unconscionable, and now has been declared unconstitutional is really unfortunate. The numbers, Reverend Sharpton, as you've consistently pointed out, speak for themselves. Stop and frisk has nothing to do with the dramatic decline in crime that actually began to take place 20 years ago during the last 2 years of the Dinkins administration.
That's correct.
Where stop and frisk wasn't utilized, but there was a dramatic infusion of the number of police officers that were displayed and put on the streets, particularly in high crime areas. The stop and frisk program doesn't target criminals, it targets innocent, law-abiding individuals. And the NYPD's own numbers illustrate that fact. 88% of the people who were stopped, questioned, and frisked did nothing wrong. No gun, no drugs, no weapon, no contraband, nothing at all. The only thing they've been guilty of, apparently, is being in the wrong neighborhood and the wrong color of skin. That's unfortunate in a democracy.
Fitting the profile. You know, Attorney Unwin, stop and frisk doesn't even stop crime. Take a look at this. Only 0.12% of stops resulted in gun seizures, as the congressman alluded to. I mean, does this really justify violating constitutional rights of hundreds of thousands of people?
Well, I think it's just further evidence of what the judge found about this deliberate indifference to the violations and deprivations of constitutional rights of American citizens based on nothing but, race. What is so bad about this policy is that not only did it result in millions of African Americans and Latinos being unjustly stopped, but those who were really committing the crimes, in fact, the majority of whites who were stopped, actually contributed to more possessions of weapons, more possessions of contraband. So they were going after the wrong people.
The percentages show that. The percentages show that. You know, Congressman, and let me be clear, we all, I'm sure, fight crime and want to see crime down. You know, I've worked with this police commissioner and the ones before him with all kinds of programs. But when you hear things like New York officer Polanco, he testified at the trial, blowing the whistle on stop and frisk, saying it was all about filling a quota. Listen to this.
We're stopping kids walking from school. We're stopping kids walking upstairs to their house. We were stopping kids from going to the store. Kids, young adults.
In order to keep your activity.
In order to keep that quota.
I mean, we're being played with just to reach a quota. This is not really about getting criminals. That, to me, is insulting.
It's insulting, and in fact, the reality is in a democracy there's got to be a balance, Rev, between effective law enforcement on the one hand and a healthy respect for civil rights and civil liberties on the other. And stop and frisk has crossed that line. Mayor Bloomberg and Police Commissioner Kelly have obliterated that balance. And the big problem is that it poisons the relationship between the police and the community.
Right.
And so I would argue, as many others have, is that the way that stop and frisk has been abused has contributed to the inability of the police to get the level of cooperation that they need in high crime areas because of the dramatic suspicion with which individuals are treated. It creates a poisoned relationship between the police and the community that ultimately undermines public safety.
Which is not good for any of us in the city or any other city. Let me go to another subject. Attorney Unwin, the racial disparity in sentencing is pretty astounding, really. Take a look at this. Prison sentences for similar crimes were nearly 20% longer for black men than white men. I mean, no one has worked it this harder than you. What can you say about this, and how do people say that justice is colorblind when these kind of facts stare us in the face?
And that's why, you know, Attorney General Holder's announcement this week was so key. It is so important that everything be done by law enforcement to reduce racial profiling in law enforcement and to make sure that we're not arresting people, we're not charging people, we're not incarcerating people and prosecuting and incarcerating people overly just based on racial stereotypes. So it is so important that we get this taint, this rottenness, this cancerous effect of race out of our law enforcement.
Congressman, you're working in a committee, a task force in Congress on this. Since 1980, the U.S. population has grown by about 40%, but the prison population has skyrocketed 790%.
It's a problem that increasingly folks on the left and the right are recognizing in Congress, and that's why we've got a bipartisan task force on overcriminalization. We have 5% of the world's population, Reverend Sharpton, and 25% of the world's prison population.
Wow.
This is creating a situation where we've got massive loss of human capital, a massive loss of economic productivity, and that's why I'm hopeful that down in the Congress, when we get back from the August recess, we can really begin to tackle this problem and that there will be significant support for the steps that Attorney General Holder has taken.
Congressman Hakeem Jeffries and Barbara Unwine, thank you both for your time tonight.